She slipped the necklace around my neck, and everyone went silent. The celebration was loud. Drums echoed. Lights danced in the sky. Alien voices laughed and sang in rhythms that sounded like water moving over stone. It was Unity Day on the planet. Valara, the first human-Valari alliance in history, and Dr. Ben Cross, a communications specialist from Earth, stood right in the middle of it, awkward and smiling. He didn't understand much. He couldn't follow the songs or the toasts, but he understood her, Ayla, the Valari girl with pale silver skin and eyes like soft stars. She wasn't loud like the others. She was quiet, gentle, curious. Every time Ben walked near the gardens, she was there, watching, listening, sometimes smiling, but never speaking first. Today was different. She had walked up to him during the final ceremony, without a word, without hesitation. She stood close, so close he could feel the warmth of her presence. Then she raised her hands and held something glowing. A necklace, simple and smooth. A fine band of light thread with a single crystal hanging from the center. It shimmered in shades Ben had never seen, colors that didn't have names. She looked into his eyes, then carefully, softly, placed it around his neck. The world didn't spin. It stopped. All sound vanished. The music, the drums, the laughter, gone. Dozens of Valari froze. Some dropped to their knees. Ayla stepped back. Ben blinked. Confused. What just happened? Behind him, his translator, a tall woman named Mira, rushed forward. Ben, she whispered. Take it off right now. What, why? You don't understand, she said, eyes wide. That's not a gift, that's a marriage bond. Ben's breath caught. What? In Valari tradition, Mira explained, only the one chosen for life receives that necklace. You just accepted her proposal. He looked at Ayla. She was watching him carefully. Hopeful, but scared too. He reached for the necklace. The moment his hand touched it, the crystal glowed brighter like it recognized him. Ayla's eyes widened. Gasps filled the air. Mira grabbed his wrist. Don't remove it. Not here. That would be a huge insult. Ben froze. What do I do? Smile, Mira whispered, and say nothing. Later, after the crowd had moved on and the drums returned, Ben sat under a large tree at the edge of the garden. His fingers gently touched the glowing necklace around his neck. He wasn't married. He didn't mean to agree to anything. But he couldn't forget the way Ayla looked at him. Like he mattered. Not as a guest, not as a human, but as himself. And when she placed the necklace, she hadn't hesitated. Not for a second. That kind of confidence couldn't be fake. Mira sat beside him, still holding her translator pad. You need to tell her it was a mistake, she said quietly. Ben shook his head. How? Without offending her? She's the daughter of a regional elder. If you reject her in public, it'll look like a challenge. I didn't know what it meant. I know, Mira said. But meaning doesn't matter in tradition. They believe the soul guides the choice. If she picked you and you wore it, that's binding. Ben looked toward the fire pit where Ayla now sat. She was surrounded by other Valari, elders, guards, her family. But her eyes were only on him. She didn't look angry. She looked afraid, like he might be the one to hurt her. He looked down at the crystal again. What happens if I go along with it? He asked. Mira blinked. What do you mean? What if I don't reject it? At least not right away. You'd become part of her house, a ceremonial mate. You'd live with them, follow their customs, probably be watched by the high circle. Ben nodded slowly, then said, maybe that's better than insulting her in front of her entire world. You sure? Mira asked. Ben stood up. No. He took a breath. But she saw something in me. And maybe. I want to know what it is. That night Ayla approached him again, just the two of them. No guards, no witnesses. She pointed to the necklace. then placed her hand gently over her heart. Ben smiled nervously. "I didn't know what it meant," he said quietly. She nodded. "I know," she replied in perfect English. Ben blinked. "You speak my language? I studied you, watched, waited. You listen when others talk. You ask before you touch. You see more than words." She stepped closer. "My people say we follow signs, but I followed you." Ben looked at her, at the necklace, at her eyes, and something in his heart whispered, maybe this wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was the beginning. "I tried to return the necklace. They treated it like an insult." Ben stared at the necklace in his hand. It glowed softly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He had taken it off gently, wrapped it in a cloth, careful not to damage the crystal. But still, it felt wrong. Like removing something alive. Across the garden, Ayla stood alone, waiting, watching. Ben walked toward her, each step heavier than the last. Mira followed at a distance. She had warned him. "Be careful how you return it. Words aren't enough. You have to show honor." But how do you return something that was never supposed to be yours? How do you hand back someone's hope? Ayla saw him coming. She looked calm, but her eyes told the truth. Worried, guarded, wounded. Ben stopped in front of her. He opened the cloth and gently held out the necklace. "I don't deserve this," he said. Silence. He tried again. "You were kind to me, and I didn't know what your gift meant, but this, I can't keep it." Still, Ayla said nothing. She reached out with both hands, but not to take the necklace. She closed them over Ben's, pressed his fingers shut around the gift, and whispered just one word. "No." The world shifted. Behind her, 2 elder guards moved forward, hands tightening around ceremonial staffs. Voices murmured nearby. One word repeated again and again in Valari tongue. "Rejection." Mira ran forward, her face pale. "She just refused. Your refusal." Ben blinked. "What?" Mira whispered. "You tried to give it back. That's considered a denial of her soul offer. But by placing it back in your hand, she protected your honor. Now the insult is hers." Ayla stood tall, turning toward the watching crowd. Her voice rang out in her native tongue. Mira translated in a whisper behind Ben. The human did not know. His soul was unready. The fault is mine. Let no harm come to him. The guards lowered their staffs. The elders bowed their heads slightly. The crowd quieted. Ben's chest tightened. She just took the shame, so he wouldn't have to. He stepped forward. "Ayla, wait." She turned, expression soft but distant now. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," she said. "Then help me understand." She nodded once. "Then come with me." She led him away from the main plaza, into the sacred paths behind the gardens. The stone walkways were old, carved with glowing symbols. They entered a circular room made of glass and light. At the center was a pool, still, silent, reflecting the stars above. "This is the place of soul binding," Ayla said. Ben looked around. "What happens here?" "This is where Valari choose, our ancestors, our mates, our promises." She walked to the edge of the pool. "I brought you here the night I gave you the necklace. You did not see it. But I chose this place before. I chose you." Ben stepped beside her. "I'm not Valari. I'm not noble. I'm not anyone special." Ayla turned to him. "You listened when no one else did. You spoke gently to our children. You bowed before touching our trees. You saw me before you saw status." Ben looked down at the necklace in his hand. "What if I still don't know what this all means?" She reached for it, slowly. He didn't stop her, but instead of taking it, she placed her hand over his. "Then keep it. Not as a bond. Not yet. But as a bridge." He met her gaze. "You're giving me another chance?" "I'm not asking for marriage, Ben," she said. "I'm asking for time." He smiled just a little. "I can do that." Later that night, Ben sat alone by the sleeping tree, watching the necklace glow on his palm. He didn't put it back on. Not yet. But he didn't let it go either. Somewhere nearby, Ayla slept with peace in her chest. Not because she was chosen, but because she chose kindness over anger. And Ben, he finally understood that this wasn't just a mistake. It was a moment, one that might grow into something neither of them planned, but both now quietly hoped for. She thought we were married. I thought I was a prisoner. Ben woke up to the soft hum of alien birds outside his window. He wasn't in the human base anymore. He was in Ayla's house, a tall, quiet stone structure surrounded by silver trees and moonglass walls. The Valari called it a home of bonding, and it was usually reserved for new couples starting their life together. Ben didn't ask to be moved there, but after the necklace incident, Ayla's father, Elder Trian, had declared, he must be protected and watched. If he wears the bond mark, he lives under her roof. So now Ben had a new home and a new reality he didn't understand. The house was peaceful, but not free. Every door had soft sensors that tracked his movement. Guards stood outside the walls, not with guns, but long crystal staffs. Inside, Ayla moved with grace and purpose, like she belonged to every wall, every shadow. But every time she smiled at him, Ben felt the pressure tighten, because to her, they weren't just friends. She still believed he was her chosen mate. And Ben didn't know how to live inside a life that wasn't his. At breakfast, they sat across from each other, a round table, 2 glowing bowls, a fruit that tasted like mint and fire. Ayla sipped slowly. Ben poked at the food with a wooden fork. Is this spicy or cold? He asked. Both, she said. It adapts to your blood. He stared at it. That's terrifying. She laughed quietly. Ben cleared his throat. So, this place, the guards, the walls, it's a lot. You are part of my house now, she said. Protection is expected, even if I don't feel like I belong here. Her smile faded. She lowered her bowl. You wore the necklace. Our people saw it. My soul touched yours. That bond is not just tradition, it's real. Ben stood up. I didn't mean to accept that. I didn't know. I feel like I've been placed inside a story I didn't write. She stood too. You could have removed it. You could have walked away. But you didn't. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because she was right. He hadn't walked away. Later, Mira visited him. She had clearance to move between human and Valari zones. She brought news, supplies, and pressure. You've caused waves, Ben, she said. Command wants updates. The council wants answers. They're calling you the human prince. Ben groaned. I didn't ask for this. Well, you got it, Mira said. And Ayla's father is one of the 10 elders. If he thinks you're mocking his daughter, it won't just be your problem. It'll be Earth's. Ben rubbed his forehead. Don't know what to feel. Mira looked at him gently. Do you like her? He paused, thought carefully, then said, Yes, I do. But I don't know how. I don't know the rules here. Mira smiled. Then learn. That night, Ayla showed him the Hall of Memories, a private chamber lit by floating stones. Each stone held a soft blue glow, a family moment frozen in light. She showed him one. It was her as a child, laughing beside a stream, her mother's voice in the background. She passed before the last peace treaty, Ayla said. She told me that love is the only thing that bends tradition without breaking it. Ben watched the light flicker. She would have liked you, Ayla whispered. You're honest, afraid, but you stay. Ben looked at her and saw her, not as an alien, not as a symbol, but as someone just like him. Lonely, hopeful, tired of pretending. He stepped closer. I don't know what I am to you, he said, but I want to figure it out when together. She smiled, and for the first time the necklace around his neck glowed softly without pain. But outside the chamber, danger waited. A man stood in the dark, watching, tall, sharp, dressed in royal black, Ayla's cousin Revik, the one who once believed he would be her bondmate. He turned away silently and sent a signal to someone far away. The human is still here. The necklace still shines. Permission to proceed? The answer came back instantly. Yes. Remove him. Quietly. I was supposed to be her bondmate. Now they want me dead. Night fell heavy over the Valari estate. The moons were hidden behind clouds. The lights in the garden were dimmed. Inside the stone walls all was quiet. Too quiet. Ben couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. He stood at the open window of his guest room, staring out at the trees. The necklace around his neck gave off a faint pulse like a heartbeat. It only did that when Ayla was near, or when his emotions were running wild. Tonight, it pulsed harder. Something was coming, and he was right. Down the eastern hallway, Revik moved like a shadow. A blade coated in clear toxin rested in his hand. He was dressed in ceremonial black, not for stealth, but for symbolism. If someone saw him, they'd think he was a messenger of morning, and tonight he was. He had watched Ayla grow up. He had trained beside her, waited for the day their houses would merge. But she had chosen a human, a quiet man from a lesser world, unworthy, unclean, unfit. Revik's lips curled into a smile. He would fix the mistake, with silence, with one cut. Ben moved away from the window. The hairs on the back of his neck rose. He stepped toward the door and paused. The necklace suddenly flashed bright, then cold. He didn't know what that meant, but he knew it wasn't good. Then, the lights cut out, total darkness. Revik entered the room, blade ready, but Ben wasn't there. He turned and took a chair to the ribs. Ben wasn't a soldier, but he had instincts, and now adrenaline. They fought in the dark, crashing into walls, slamming into furniture. The blade missed his chest by inches. Ben punched hard. Revik grunted and dropped the knife. Ben kicked it away, but Revik was stronger. He slammed Ben to the floor, knelt over him, fist raised, then stopped. A blue light filled the room. Ayla, standing in the doorway, eyes glowing like fire, voice sharp and shaking. If you strike him, you strike me. Revik froze. She stepped forward, lifting her hand. The necklace around Ben's neck glowed again, brighter than ever. It responded to her, to them. Ayla's voice cracked like thunder. You are no longer welcome in this house. Guards rushed. In seconds later, Revik didn't resist. He just stared at Ben with eyes full of hate. He does not belong here, he hissed. Ayla replied coldly. He belongs to me. That is enough. Later, the healer bandaged Ben's shoulder. His lip was split, his eye bruised. Ayla sat beside him. She hadn't left his side once. Ben winced as the bandage was tightened. You all right? She asked. He smirked. Aside from nearly dying in my sleep? Perfect. Her face fell. I'm sorry. Not your fault. Yes, it is, she said. I brought you into this world. I thought they would accept you. I was wrong. Ben leaned back. I thought I was a guest. Then I thought I was a mistake. Then a husband. Now a target. He looked into her eyes. But the only thing I'm sure about is that I don't want to leave. She blinked. I don't care about titles or tradition, but I care about you. Ayla took his hand. I never wanted a protector, she said. But the day I gave you that necklace, I hoped you'd become one. Ben squeezed her hand. You picked the right guy. The next day, the council sent a message, not one of apology, but of concern. They asked Ayla to step back from the bond, to consider her duty, to preserve the old ways, but she answered with only 4 words. I've made my choice. And beside her, Bruised but unbroken stood the man the stars had never expected, but she had always seen. She chose me over her people, and they turned on us both. The council chamber was made of stone and light. It stood at the center of the Valari capital, carved from sacred crystal, used only for declarations that shaped history. Decisions spoken, here echoed across stars. Now the seats were full. Valari elders, house leaders, high priests, even human envoys had been called to observe. But all eyes were fixed on one figure, Ayla. She stood tall in the center of the circle, the sunlight catching her silver robes. Beside her, bandaged and calm, stood Ben Cross, the human they called the Bonded One. Some called him a symbol, others called him a threat, but no one dared ignore him anymore. An elder named Sarath spoke first. "You know why we gather?" Ayla nodded. "To judge a bond that frightens you," Sarath continued. "The bond mark still glows, the necklace remains, you still choose the outsider." "Yes," Ayla said, "you reject your duties. I reject your fear." Murmurs filled the room. Sarath narrowed his eyes. "You were next in line to join the House of Flame. That position is now lost." Ayla looked around the circle. "I never wanted to rise by walking over the future. Ben didn't steal my path. He gave me a better one." "By breaking tradition?" another elder asked. "No," Ayla said firmly. "By reminding me that tradition without truth is just a cage." Ben stepped forward. His voice shook a little, but he spoke anyway. "I didn't plan for this," he said, "but I stayed. I learned your ways. I didn't run when I was attacked. I didn't break the bond. All I did was accept something that was real." He looked at Ayla, "And I'd do it again." The room went silent. Outside, crowds filled the walkways. Valari citizens stood by glowing trees, staring at the chamber screens. Some whispered in support. Others turned away in silence. Then, a bold voice shouted, "She chose a human over her house." Another cried, "She's not one of us anymore." A third said quietly, "Maybe she's more Valari than all of us." And that started something, a question none of them could ignore. What makes someone worthy of love? Blood or choice? Back inside, Sarath made one final offer. "You may keep your bond, Ayla, but you must surrender your claim to the high seats. You will have no title, no command, no legacy." She looked down at her hands, then at Ben, then at the necklace still around his neck, and smiled. "I accept," she said. Gasps filled the room. "You give up your future?" someone asked. "No," Ayla said. "I just rewrote it." They walked, out of the chamber hand in hand, not as rulers, not as rebels, but as something rarer. Two people who chose each other when the world told them not to. Later that night, they sat on a quiet rooftop. The city below buzzed with voices, some angry, some confused, but many silent, thinking, watching. Ayla looked at Ben. "They will not stop talking." "Let them," he said. "You lost everything." She shook her head. "No, I found everything that matters." She touched his hand. "You gave me the strength to break the cycle." He chuckled. "I thought I was just an accidental husband." She smiled. "You were." Then she added, "But maybe that's exactly what I needed. I never belonged on her world until I saw what I meant to her." The sun rose slowly over Valari, prime, casting gold light through the high towers, but the warmth didn't reach the forest borderlands. There, among the cold trees, Ben Cross knelt, hands tied behind his back, head lowered. His face was bruised, his shirt torn, and across from him stood a group of masked Valari radicals, those who believed Ayla's bond to a human had brought shame to their people. "You don't belong here," one of them hissed. "You are poison in her bloodline." Ben didn't reply. He just kept his eyes open, watching, waiting, not for escape, for her, because she would come. He believed that, even now. Back at the estate, Ayla's fingers trembled. She held the broken crystal fragment they had sent her, a piece of the necklace Ben always wore. It had been cut, a message, a warning. They had him, and they wanted her to come alone. Her father begged her not to go. "Send guards," he said. "You are not one of them anymore, but you are still my daughter." "I am not going to war," Ayla said. "I'm going to bring back the only person who never asked me for anything." She left her armor behind. She wore a plain robe, and she carried no weapons, only a heartbeat and a promise. When she arrived at the clearing, the radicals surrounded her. "You come alone?" their leader asked. "Yes." "To beg for his life?" "No," she said softly. "To remind you that what we do to others, we do to ourselves." The leader laughed. "You gave up your throne for this off-worlder. Why not let us finish the shame?" Ayla stepped forward. "I gave up power," she said. "But I did not give up my soul. He carries it now." The leader drew a blade. "Then you've made this easy." He moved to strike Ben. Ayla raised her voice, not loud, but sharp. "Hurt him, and you destroy every law our ancestors died for." The leader paused. Because Valari law, old sacred law, said no bondmate could be harmed without a formal challenge, and even radicals followed sacred law. Ben lifted his head. Their eyes met. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I did. I don't belong here." "You do to me," she said, "and that makes you ours." The radicals hesitated. One of them dropped his weapon, another stepped back, and just like that, the group broke. Some fled. Some stayed silent, but no one moved against her again. Ayla walked to Ben, untied his wrists, and helped him to his feet. He leaned against her, weak but smiling. "Next time," he said, "let's meet at a cafe." She laughed through her tears. "I thought I lost you." "You almost did." He looked at the broken necklace shard in her hand. "I guess that means the bond is broken." She shook her head. "No." Then she reached under her robe and pulled out a new necklace. Handmade. Rough. Beautiful. "Now, we make one together." Back at the capital, the news spread fast. Ayla had faced her enemies alone, and saved the outsider no one believed in. And the people, they didn't cheer. They didn't riot. They listened, because no speech could be stronger than what she'd just done. And slowly, change began. That night, Ben stood on the balcony, freshly bandaged, watching the stars. Ayla stepped beside him. "Do you still feel like you don't belong here?" she asked. He looked out across the glowing city. "No," he said. She smiled. "Why not?" He turned to her and said, "Because you came for me, not as a queen, but as someone who saw me. Before I ever saw myself. They gave her a throne. She gave me her heart." The grand assembly hall of Valari Prime shimmered with light. It was not war that filled the space. It was music. It was peace. It was hope. Ayla stood at the center of the hall, wearing robes woven with both human thread and Valari crystal silk. Her hair was braided in the royal pattern, but her crown sat gently in her hands, not on her head. She did not take the throne by force. She didn't ask for power, but her people offered it to her anyway. Because she had done what no leader before her ever had. She chose love over law, truth over tradition, and a human over fear. Ben stood beside her, dressed in a clean tunic and boots that still didn't quite fit. His bruises had faded, but the quiet in his eyes remained. He wasn't used to crowds, or councils, or history remembering his name, but he was used to her. And when she looked at him, he felt like he had always belonged. Even in a world that once wanted him gone, a priestess stepped forward. "The bond mark has changed our people," she said. "Two lives joined across stars, a sign that the old way is not the only way." Ayla nodded, then looked at Ben. She raised the crown, then placed it on the stone table instead of her head. "I do not take the throne alone," she said, "because I did not walk this path alone." She reached for Ben's hand and held it tight. "I ask not for titles," she said. I ask only for truth. The crowd went still. She turned to the council. I love him. Soft gasps. But no anger. No laughter. Just silence. She continued. I give him nothing he didn't already earn, and he gives me what no crown ever could. He gives me a heart that listens, a mind that questions, and a soul that stays, even when it would be easier to leave. The room stood, all of it, and bowed. Not to a queen, not to a title, but to two people who reminded them all what love was supposed to look like. Later that night, under the twin moons, Ayla and Ben stood on a small balcony away from the city noise. The stars glowed brighter than usual. He held a glass of fruit wine. She held his other hand. You didn't put on the crown, he said. She smiled. I didn't need to. You'll lead without it? I'll lead by walking next to people, not above them. He nodded, then looked at her. Are you sure? About me? She laughed. After you fought off an assassin with a chair? He chuckled. Fair. She grew quiet, then asked gently, and are you sure about me? He turned fully to her. I never believed in soulmates, he said. But then one gave me a necklace I didn't understand. She leaned her head on his shoulder. And you still wore it. I think I was waiting for you, before I even knew your name. In the archives, history would call it the first soul bond between worlds. In textbooks, it would become a symbol of unity. But in their hearts, it would always be simpler. She gave him a necklace, and he gave her everything he had. She was born for the throne, but only truly ruled when she gave her heart away.